Domestic helpers sleeping in HDB bomb shelters. A necessary evil or just plain evil? Let's get into that. But before we begin, please like and share this video. Rice Media recently shared a video talking about how bomb shelters and utility rooms are being rebranded as maid rooms. Let's take a look at a condensed version of their video that's on Instagram and TikTok.
I think this is very inhumane to let the maid to sleep in the bomb shelter. I would tell people who ask the helpers to sleep in the bomb shelter, why not they try for themselves first? If they can survive, okay lor.
I think using the bomb shelter or laundry room as a maid's room is okay because some people just do not have an extra room to give to the helper.
Today, the property industry is marketing more bomb shelters, originally emergency spaces in HDB flats, as maid rooms. Rice speaks to Singaporeans and helpers about just how livable these spaces really are.
For me, it's not okay because I came here to physically feed at work. We're not asking for the big one. We're asking for comfortable that we can rest after our work.
I have a live-in helper with me. She stays in the utility room by herself. Minimum, we must have a wall fan to help ventilate, and the door has to be open. I think to be pragmatic, right, is there an alternative?
This is not a new phenomenon. People have been turning their bomb shelters into livable rooms for years. And I've actually exposed a company on TikTok that makes bed structures for bomb shelters in a YouTube video last year. Since Rice Media released this video, I think it's a good idea to open up this conversation again.
Can we start the story now?
So one of the main questions is this cruel? If you go to the HDB website, it explains that household shelters has been around since the mid-90s to protect you during an emergency. Keyword here being emergency. But there are people who have fashioned this bunker, essentially that's what it is, into living quarters. There are two main things that people have a problem with, which is one, it's a storeroom. And the second more pressing issue being the ventilation. The door to the bomb shelter is reinforced to protect you during an emergency, and it also provides airtight closure. So in a normal day-to-day situation, if someone is living in a bomb shelter, you wouldn't want the door closed. There is a ventilation sleeve, but it's just a hole in a wall that can also be airtight shut. So in the interest of your eyes and ears, this isn't the most private of rooms unless you have it completely shut. There are contractors that would install a separate lighter door for privacy, you know, the foldable ones that you use for your toilets. And a fan would be installed in the shelter to move the air around. Some nicer employers would install air conditioning, but that's few and far in between. How regulated is the bomb shelter? There are some guidelines in the HDB website stating that you cannot hack or drill the walls, floor, ceiling, and door of the shelter. There are also certain finishes and fixtures that are not permitted as they cannot be easily removed and may become hazards during an emergency.
I'm in danger!
Again, it's supposed to be a shelter during an emergency. If you go on a cruise, no one's using the lifeboats until it's time to use them. If we want to go into detail about what's allowed, it's not on the HDB website, but the SCDF website. And people wouldn't know because they didn't even link the two websites, despite them both being government agency websites. But yes, there are documents for you to read, especially as a homeowner. There's even a technical document for your interior designer to read to make sure they stay above board in case you want to renovate. But after reading the Civil Defense Shelter Act of 1997, the thing the government is most concerned about is just the tampering and altering of the structure of the bomb shelter. And not so much of what you use it for.
Why does what I'm doing even matter?
So that makes it an ethical debate. Since the bomb shelter is a panic room, should you live in it? I believe one of the dilemmas is that Singaporeans are mostly not living in the bomb shelters themselves, but instead reserving them for their domestic helpers. No one's betting an eye if I stayed in the bomb shelter. It's when you're taking someone from a foreign land that wants to earn money for themselves and their family and then stuffing them in a storeroom.
Break down the door.
What you say?
Do they not deserve some dignity? Sure, they're from places that are not well off. But us being the host should be providing them with basic respect, which is a comfortable place to rest. They're already working where they're living, so regardless of what it says on the paper of their working hours, they're basically on call 24/7.
Sir, are you listening to me, sir? Sir, I'm talking to you!
Because there are employers that cannot draw the line between where their work ends and their rest begins. There are plenty of mistreatment cases out there, but that's another video for another time. I would personally like to answer one of the questions being asked.
Is there an alternative?
There is, but it's not what people want to hear. The alternative is to make adjustments in your life so that you don't have to depend on a live-in helper. Ask yourself, why do you need a helper? To help with the kids, the elderly, yourselves. If you need help with raising kids, there is a saying that it takes a village. But you also need to provide for the village. You cannot just take. The village ecosystem can only exist if there is a healthy exchange of necessities. It cannot be a one-way street.
I hate it. I'm out.
Wow.
So would you consider the question of, should I even have kids if I cannot provide for them for whatever reason? Must the baggage be filled to the brim even though you know you're going past the weight limit and you have to pay extra at the check-in counter? The underlying issue is that Singaporeans are overextending themselves without fully understanding the stipulations that come with getting helpers. Because we have to remember, a helper is a whole other person that we have to house and feed.
Can you people not see me?
If you cannot provide that, then it's a slippery slope of problems that'll arise in the future. The message that I'm trying to put out there is that domestic helpers, or even foreign workers in general, are human too. Their skill set and presence should be treated with as much consideration as you would a key component in your life. Not as some fallback when things go sideways. We've all read and heard about the helpers that stay with their employer for years, since the kids were young till they're grown adults. It's because they're being treated like human beings. Their well-being was taken into consideration, which resulted in a happier environment for them to work and live in. And the elephant in the room that I'm going to mention is that it's usually with expat families. But I'm not praising a whole demographic. I understand that there are good and bad employers, local and foreign. Hiring domestic helpers is not just about whether you have the funds to have them or not. It's about being a responsible employer. As responsible as the employer that hired you for your job. We can take the first step by viewing domestic helpers as equals rather than servants who are at our mercy.